So I don't know the process, but if you go to raycard.co.uk, you are going to see this slide. You can go there, you will see the guide on how to get the raycard. I have a friend, my roommate, one of my students was using raycard. I enjoy traveling by bus because I'll be able to see places. So that's what I said to get it. Because if you go to school, you can train, close to see the doctor and more importantly, try to book ahead. So, and this is applicable to we have dependents here, dependents. So, if for whatever reason you traveling out of Sudan by train or even by bus, always book ahead. It's very cheap. About 2 or 3 weeks ago, I traveled to London, and because I booked ahead, I paid £35 and if I was going to pay or buy the ticket on London at I think I would just pay £60. So it's always good to also ensure that these 2 things are valuable. So different companies, you can use Megabox, National Express, and Flixbox website so to book your ticket. Even as a student, you can be using both Megabox or National Express, you can book that and book it. So we'll be talking about work, how we can next slide. Yes, so we talked extensively about this, how we can secure full-time professional jobs in the United Kingdom. Even as a student. Now, everything I was saying in the church this morning, please, it's not for dependents, even as students. In fact, you can get a professional job. I work as a professional, even as a student. I was only doing 20 hours. So I worked at the university by the special grace of God, even as a student. So but they allowed me, I was only doing 20 hours during all the days. They allowed me to work in the local house as much as I wanted to work. So all of these things, right information, adequate training, you need to follow through. Please let's keep them to us. And to be candid, if I will factor with you, don't let us stress ourselves about I'm coming from Nigeria. My Nigeria experience is not going to be applicable, it's not going to be useful. Please put that for your Nigeria experience will be useful. Take it for it's going to be useful, even if you pass your all you just need to do is believe in yourself and search. Believe in yourself and search and get. So let's try to follow all this. I don't want to jump much on this because Doctor has talked about their expensive. So these are the kind of jobs that you can look at for. Not necessarily a job in IT. I talked about a firm and we stay together in a room. It's not into IT. He was a chartered accountant in Nigeria. He came to TSI to study data science, but now he's working as an accountant in NHS with sponsorship, using his Nigeria experience as his education. You understand? So it's not necessarily you need to be in IT before you can get, because as part of the study, I said I will share this with us that you don't necessarily need to be in IT or in the medical line before you can get sponsorship. People in other fields are also getting sponsorship. All we need to do is to get the right information and make use of that information. So, because all of this, I'm not happy that everything we have here is just out there. We cannot all do that. I'm in IT, right? But I know that we all can't be in IT. So, just to get us encouraged that you don't necessarily need to be in IT or you can get a professional job that even with a sponsorship or COS. Next time. But I'll just talk briefly about this I'll talk briefly into this slide, these useful tips that are very essential in getting us a professional job that you desire. Start early. Start applying even as a student. start applying. Even if they are going to reject you, start applying. You are getting better. Some will tell you that if you don't do that information while you were rejected, your application is rejected. Give us the name. I want to give them the tell you about that. The two movements, I was even like interview with them. You understand? So, and they said I wasn't successful. That I want feedback. I should do them. They told me that when I during the interview, I wasn't giving enough examples. I was giving shorter answers. You understand? And I knew that's what I actually did because I knew the reason. So, apply. If rejection comes, like Dr. said to us, delete it, apply to another one, and you own. Join professional networking site, get your CV. So I said I was going to talk about this. Get your CV and cover letter reviewed by experts. That's very key. But I will put it in this way because experts who want to take money, they will ask you to pay some amount and you will not start on this. Please don't sleep on ChatGPT and reports. I want to believe that all okay, so it's a tool, it's an online tool that can answer all questions of life. ChatGPT. So it can answer all questions of life. So you can use ChatGPT GPT to review your CV. Just copy and paste your CV and say, hey, can you please review my CV or review for so and so? I did that a lot. And it will tell you what you need to do to make your CV better. You understand? So again, work upon it. Same thing with your cover letter or your personal statement. The doctor was telling us that when you are writing your cover letter or your personal statement, make sure that you include job descriptions in the adverts in what you are doing at the moment. So ChatGPT will help you to do all of those things. And then you can use QuickBooks to paraphrase or paraphrase. So there are a whole lot of tools, online tools that can help you with this, such that you don't need to pay any experts. And at the end of the day, you are going to get a good result. So this, let's add that at the back of our mind that we need to update our CV and our cover letter, and we use these tools as I mentioned for the reviews. And also prepare adequately for your interviews. I said that I'm going to have interviews that online interviews that I know. So because I want to pay, I don't pay. That interview came when I was a student. That was like around August last year. And it was sponsorship. But at the beginning of the interview, the lady told me that for this job, there is sponsorship, there's CVS. Just so let me know that. So because I don't do well, so I just have opportunity. But not good. I have another opportunity. So let's prepare well for our interview. There are so many resources online on YouTube that you can use to prepare ourselves, apart from the ones that are listed here that I will also share with us on the platform. And also, before going for a professional interview, it is best if you attend a mock interview session for effective preparation. So, now talking about interview, let's just review. When you go for interview, you don't need to form. You don't need to change our accent. You don't need to do anything excessive. Just be yourself. Understand? We don't need to pretend to be who we are not. You understand? Just be yourself and let them know what you have to offer. One thing I've discovered about this white people is that they are not like, I want to be very careful with my words now. So what I've discovered about them is that they are straightforward and they are open-minded. They are open-minded. They will not say, oh, because you are black, are not going to choose you, even though you have something better to offer than someone asking. The last interview that I went for, we were 25, and we had the right guys also that take the interview. And we selected 3 of us, and I was the only black selected out of 25. And the other 2 guys that were selected were white. But I'm so sure that it wasn't because of the call that we needed to select those guys, but that we need to select them also. Right? So we don't need to entertain anything, just be yourself, and answer whatever questions you have to the best of your ability. And as you do so, I pray that God will help you in Jesus' name. And also, there are so many links that we can use to get jobs applied directly to companies via their website. Another organization that I will encourage us, I'm not sure whether the link is here. Yeah, it's here. NHS too. And it's just NHS jobs. NHS are they have over 33,000 plus vacancies in the United Kingdom. You understand? So with NHS, I always tell people that you don't need to be a doctor or you don't need to be a nurse to work in NHS. They need other professionals, they need data scientists, they need accountants, they need business analysts. You understand? In fact, with NHS, I know a lot about them. One thing I know about them is that they do what's called blind recruitment. So it doesn't matter where you are coming from. Your personal identifiers will be taken away from your applications and they will push your CV to those who are going to students and decide on the people they are inviting. So please, let's explore. Even as a student, in your workplace, as you are working at the work with NHS. On my team, we have a student that is there. We have a student on our team. During holidays, she works on limited time. And during in time, she works 20 hours. So instead of, I'm not discouraging us from going to care, factory jobs, I also did those because there are other opportunities that will help us able to grow in our career. And I'm going to go to this in Jesus' name. Next slide. Are we together?
Yes.
Okay. Now, so these are agencies with the phone numbers. I'm not sure whether these numbers are up to date. I'm not sure. But when we have these numbers on our platform, we can try, and give them a name. But most of these agencies, they are into care. They are into care, support work, and mental health. So, like we're told, we need something to keep our spiritual and body together, state and peace. So we can give them a bit something to get them. That we are expanding the tentacle. So let's take it. So all of these care goals, finances. Next slide. Now, I've just run through this. Managing living expenses, plan your finances, acquire financial planning skills. Keep it now. If I'm not going to read from all of this, and I will speak to us, as a brother, I'll just advise you. Number one, if you are a student, the first thing, the first concern should be your school fees, and you know that some of us, if not all, some of us, we only pay our deposits. We still have outstanding school fees to pay. So the priority should be your school fees, because here you don't see fees are paid. All those big words that you speak to access in Nigeria, and we are not even considered. They are only someone, and you are saying boniface for them. That is not applicable here. You must pay them. So your school fees should be your concern. So try to work out how you pay your school fees. If you know, so at CSAC, when I was there, they are now several installments, but now it's past that. And I heard that it's now 3 installments. If you know that you're not be able to meet all, let them know. I'm telling you, what I'm going to post that I will concentrate. Let them know that, oh, this is my plan. Give them your plan, your company plan, and you also work with it. And give them your plan. You as a person, child to make some so that you know embarrassed. That's number one. Then again, your bills, very important. Your rent, your house rent, your electricity, your gas, your internet. It's not compulsory on this. You don't always need that. So that is also very important. It's a monthly thing. So, and averagely, you will be spending close to £800 on this. If you have a family in the UK, if I speak with that, the average will be spending between 700 to 800 on the bill. So that will be part of your plan. You understand how will you be meeting on one basis so that you will not default. Because if you default, it's going to affect your credit rating, and you don't want that to happen. If you default, you're not going to be sending you letter of paying your money, paying your debt. In fact, you don't want to be embarrassed. If you keep on defaulting, they can sue you. They have the right to sue you. You don't want to put that effort. So I encourage you, let's have a quarterly plan that will enable us to meet with our monthly financial obligations. And also, still on this, energy rates are cheaper at night. This is very important. So I said I was going to talk about it because we have one of our moments in the house when we came last year. So she said it was during this session, the session I did, that she said that energy rates are cheaper at night. So she started using washing machine at midnight. So from around 10, I've not done it, but I've started talking about it. Energy rates low. So you can use your washing machine, you can use the channel. So with that, you save some time. And I pray that God is going to pay us off in Jesus' name. And again, I want to encourage us. Don't be in a hurry to get credit card. Because that is what I've seen people that are so crazy about credit card. Credit card is good. I have one or two, but I didn't get it immediately. I can tell that it's okay for me to work on credit. So what's being hurry? Because it's the debt. If you don't pay, you spend 1 night and 1 to pay that 1 in that month. If you don't pay, you are going to pay interest. And the interest here is always crazy. You can just imagine you taking like £5 and asking you to pay interest, like maybe £3 or £4. You are paying £9 or £5. So you don't want to put yourself in that position, paying interest. So take some time to get yourself stabilized financially before you start exploring all these so-called financial opportunities that the country has to offer. It's a credit-driven nation. You know, if you want to buy a new car, now, if you want to buy a new car, you might be not to get one, you know, but challenge is you are going to pay everything for it. You don't want to put yourself under unnecessary pressure. So take your time to get a quest stabilized before you start looking for comfort. Because that is one of the things that I've seen getting themselves involved in looking for comfort. They want to post on social media for people to see benefits in different life and to you and those things can be good. Just it's a matter of time before the business will be done. So let's plan our finances so that we will not find ourselves in debt and don't debt. Next one. So sorry, go back to the now, let me quickly talk about it. It's advisable to go for store branded items as they are cheaper than unbranded items. Yes, that is true. So items are branded. Like if you go to Audi, so let's use the past like this. Yeah, you get things at cheaper. If you go to Audi, groceries at Audi compared to so we go to Audi to get our stuff for the kids. It's very cheap. And when you go there, look for items branded. Drink so, buy so, start get everything good. And also, next slide. Blocking financial leakage, right budget, regularly check your bank accounts, avoid buying items you don't need before they are cheap, avoid shopping in expensive stores and shops, avoid credit cards if possible. I talked about that. Avoid shopping in expensive stores and shops, avoid buying expensive electronic gadgets. You don't have anybody to intimidate you. Understand? There is no one to intimidate. If you have a big car, you have it for yourself and your family. If you have all these sound systems at home, Now, in fact, if you have sound system, you can't tune it, you can't increase the volume like you do in Nigeria to intimidate your neighbor so that they know that you just want a new LG 120 watts system. No, you can't do that here. So whatever you buy is for you, for your usage, and for your family. So why do you want to replace people to your people that are not worker, don't have to? So avoid buying expensive electronic gadgets. All of those things, by the time God settles you, you buy them easily without stress. You even buy for people. Vigilant over your shopping when at bus stops and retail shops. Wow, because they are always expensive, just like in Nigeria. You know, these people, as with you, they have this their own way of exploiting. You know, so you just need to be very careful when you are at bus stops, especially if you are students at seaside. They have all these places very close to the train station where you buy items. So those items might actually be expensive compared to what you could show you get it.
So let me say more things on that last part. That's vigilance also. When you buy things, you have to hold it. You don't drop it and say, let me go. I'm not going to do it. It's happening in the UK. When you buy things, you don't just leave it at the bus stop and thinking people will want to like somebody can just carry it. I'm not smiting. So be vigilant in terms of when you're doing hold your things or keep your eyes fixed on the thing, because there are people who are trying to pull what it is everywhere. So please, that is very important.
Thank you, sir. And lastly, talking about finances, I was going to say, if possible, if you don't mind, there are charity shops. If you are not the type that is say, oh, I can't wear fair-use materials, I can use fair-use material. There are charity shops around where you can get household items at cheaper price. For instance, say as a student, you want to finish your study, you just go to a place like British Art Foundation, you get furniture at affordable price, and you can get electronics at affordable price. So make use of charity shops to get your items, at least for a start, before you start looking for new and expensive items. Next slide. Next slide. Okay, social and community engagement. So I will talk from my head and not wow, but let's just quickly run through this. As freshmen, there is always an element of culture shock, and it's very important. That's true. You know, when I came, at the point I say, no, absolutely not this. You understand? But I remember, I'm telling the truth. I was a day I was going to walk. It was raining. You know, it was raining. There was a little bit of sunshine, and I was still shaking. Now, another time, it was sunny, and I was shaking. Oh, I was like, in fact, I put it on my boss. I said, it's only in the UK where the sun was shining, and I still be shaking. You understand? So, and that thing can be very discouraging. That's the one. And again, it's an environment where you don't have people around come to visit you, or people are able for you to visit. Compared to Nigeria, I can just go to my friend, bro, I'm just passing my thing and I say, hello to you, I'll be sure to talk. Yeah, by the time you say go to go and visit, he has gone to work, he has gone for night shifts. You understand? Maybe by the time you are less busy, it's just returning from night shifts and want to rest. So you really don't have people around that you can socialize with, and this can create some sort of culture shock. You understand? So, take it from me. It's just going to be for a while. We are going to pass over that. So, how did I mitigate the that? I got myself involved in church activity. You know, so I would go to church, not here. I wasn't very close to it. So I would go to church, go for the weekly programs, go for Sunday service, chat with a couple of people, and do it. In time, I got used to things, and here we are. So a whole lot of things will happen that will make you to ask questions and say, why am I here? Who sent me? Who sent me away from Nigeria? especially when you are working in the factory and you are standing for 11 hours. It's going to be a kind of shock. And you're going to be in the factory here. We will see a place to say, let me just sit down and be working. So, on your feet all through. And you cannot do that. You must do it. You cannot say, I need to. You have also to pay. So these are things that are different from what we are used to. So they will come, in different forms and shades. Just let us accept them. We are going to think within to. Seek information first, then money second. Talk about that. Do not hesitate to ask questions when you are in doubt. Learn more about the culture of your host community. UK visas you can switch to after your study. So let me talk briefly about this. So to those of us that are students, after your study, before as a student, you can switch to any of these visas, especially tier 2 student visa. But because you know now, how many of us are Yoruba here? Okay, Yoruba. Okay, so I was going to say it in this, but there's no way. Sometimes because we are human beings, we tend to this nature of abusing system. The system has been abused, and the government has stopped students switching to skill worker visa. So, as a student, you are expected to complete your study. Trying to apply a master's student. How many of us are doing PhD? PhD. Okay, so if you are PhD students or no one that is doing after 2 years, you can switch the visa. Even as a student. No, you must finish you must finish your studentship before you can switch. So these are the options that we get that are available for us to switch to. And our constitution has always been on healthcare worker visa. Like Dr. said, this basically don't have. There are other companies that are ready to give us some tools to local visa. Another thing that I said I was talking to Passcode that we need to have a kind of vision on is this global talent visa. People are actually getting it. Especially those who are PhD holders back at home that are in country. And how it came this week, we could PhD holders PhD chemistry. We were a lecturer. We both called me to tell me that he called this visa global talent visa. And after I came back, it's helping us to invite him to come and share with us what he did that made him to get that visa. I only spent 3 years before you get your INR, which is 0.4%. So these are the kind of visas that you can switch to after our study, and you can get more information using that. Next slide. Relevant affiliations and registrations. Mind your association. Pastor talked about it during sermon. Mind your association and seek more information before joining any volunteer groups. Beware of fraudulent professional bodies, especially online, that offer fake certifications. Now, Dr. also said that you should study. It's good to study. It's good to get certification. For more importantly, the skills that you get from those certifications are much more important. Here, they don't value papers, they value the skills that you have to offer. And of course, you can get those skills from those certifications that you will offer. And I tell you, you can learn 1,001 things in your online computer. You will pass on it down to everybody. You can be disciplined, just like you do. Discipline and devoted, you get those skills, you study online using YouTube. Consider your course of study as your priority. Please don't sleep on the study. Well, after was preaching, he spoke boastfully and graduated with distinction. He has something to say to us, to encourage us. So people will also come after us. If you don't focus on our study, how are we going to advance them? Yes, and how are we going to be a blessing to them? So I know that we are considering, we are thinking about how we are going to stabilize the country, how to get jobs, how to advance those. But let's use one stone to kill 2 birds. You understand? Let's use this stone to kill 2 birds. I studied my first place. I studied computer engineering back at home in Nigeria. Here I did cyber security. So it's 2 in 1. So with the study, I was able to bring in my family, to enjoy a kind of good life, and also I have my MSc, MSc cyber security. University. It's a thing of joy, it's a thing of pride, you understand, that I'm dropping out of the way. So I want to encourage us, those of us that are students, even if you are doing, there are some courses that people will say, oh, hospitality, or management. No, you can be the best in that course. Even this business administration they are doing, do it with the whole of your heart, stand out, you understand, and tell you that companies that are waiting to receive you. So take your study, as a priority. Next slide.
Okay. No question. All right.
No, we talked about getting a ticket. So what if you don't use it? Is money still going to be there? Or is cost?
So it's just for a week. It's a good.
Well, regarding tickets, I don't know. It depends on if you're using Megabot. If you're going to be using Megabot, then get subsidized tickets. Okay, thank you, sir. Can we move on to
For the something so I will just use my example, my own case to explain. So back at home, I was working in the school as an IT teacher in the state, administrator. So I never had the opportunity to work IT full time. So I did. So I came here after I did going to do internship. Most of the courses are 2-year programs. So fortunately for me, I want to encourage us when we meet people, even our people outside, let's do well with people. It was just a turning point for me. So at that day, I was looking for the place to do my internship. So I went to and we met this man, it's my structure. But it was a very big man. So it was another name. So we was talking with the father in the distance. So we were talking about I said this respectfully, So the man was shocked. We Yorubas, we have this culture of respect. But when we go out, we tend to lose it, especially when we find ourselves in an environment where they are not particularly respected. So I can tell her that we use all even though we still that than me. You understand? So I guess the man has been experiencing that from our people. You understand? But I didn't do that. Though we had a small natural, so I understand. Like the person, this is what I was feeling. You understand? So I was using effort for him. You understand? So he was so surprised, and at the end of the day, He said, let me have the number. He came here. I don't know that. He kept on calling me. But at the point, I told my wife, this man is not trying to introduce us to someone because he just picked his particular interest in us. In me, you understand? And I introduced my friend, I introduced my friend to him. So that if anything will happen, it will happen to of course. So I'm telling you the truth. And so when it was time for me to do my internship, I just told that, sir, I need a place to do my internship. We have connections with people that are high caliber in the country, but we never know. Just connected with a man. So I did my internship. That's where it's what's used to make it kind of small things. So look for where you can do your own internship. So if you are a teacher back at home, there are agencies that you can work with as teacher. You understand? Post to different schools, maybe to go as a counselling or to go as a listening. All of those experiences you count. Even as a teacher. So that knowledge gap or that break is not a reason for you not to continue that path.
Understand. And if even if it's a factory job that you have, if you don't have a part-time job or profession, I mean, the different profession future. Because at school, during interview, they will ask you what were you doing? Yeah, when you have already seen that you will not studying, the job or every skill counts. Right. Thank you, sir. Excellent presentation. I think because of time, I might rush mine. So if you need sort of support, I think we'll support always reach out to me. Then we'll also spend 30 minutes. These are 3. God will help us. So right, so that is me. Can we move on to the next place? The next slide. So we look at self-awareness question. I might be jumping some slide. Teaching and learning assessment, learning techniques, time back, academic writing tips, avoiding plagiarism, preparing for math. So for those who are studying, this is very, very important. Next slide, please. Now, these are some of the questions that I think you should ask yourself. How do you feel starting a new university degree? How can I overcome anxieties, which I faced it when I started my master's, and they gave me an assessment. I started calling people in Nigeria. I said, how did you do it? And people want to face it, you overcome it. And after a while, I faced it, and I overcame. So don't be anxious about your study, don't be pressure, it's a challenge, and believe that how it takes to overcome it. What are the expectations, goals, and objectives? I think by now you have to set goals. You want to be the best that it is possible. You want to make a distinction, you want to have the first class. So set high goals, high expectations of yourself. You're almost likely to succeed in my career. The goals are about there's work to do. There's work to do. But believe it is possible. Because I've seen some people that show, there's a bit of education out there. The last time I went from school was 10 years ago. Now I'm starting a master's and take it up as a new challenge. That you are able, that you can do the best. We've seen who 10, 15 years ago when he became the best when he was in the master's. So take it up as a challenge. Next slide, please. So these are the things we'll be experiencing on student lectures. Please, I encourage you to attend lecture. Even if the lecture is not because there is information that you might get that will be useful for you. So as a lecturer at the university, attendance is one of the things you have to do. And particularly because you're a student, you're an international student, they take attendance very seriously because UKBA, the university will have to give a report of each student to UKBA. So if the attendance is very low, Well, that they might begin to investigate maybe you have funded studies and it will be later found out that you have funded, you go to work in the classroom, they can withdraw your students and they will do a scholarship there automatically your sponsorship is done. The students sponsorship increase the amount to do that. So we are going these lectures very important, seminars very important. We need to attend seminars as well. For those sciences and all that, laboratory classes you need to attend. And more important, independent study. Very important. You need to do a lot of independent study there. Masters will need that a lot. For those who are able to work well, because the lecturer will not take anything in the class. So people there's rules about to be a member. You need to make a these are the things that really the result you are expecting the time next semester. Let's move on to the next. Please. So these are some of the things about assessment in the UK. UK is not like Africa where we do exams. Here you are assessed with things of coursework. So for those who have already started, you would have been seeing coursework and like 3,000 words, 5,000 words. They don't do much of the exam. If you feel exam, it's in a kind of report. So don't read that, regurgitate that. No, here you have to do assessment, you have to do coursework, write reports, critical and all that. And that you just have to get used to that because when you do a dissertation, you have here 60 credits. And I'm telling you, if anyone feels dissertation in time like this, you just give them one certificate, not MSc. So they want to train you how to do critical writing, academic writing, by giving you all this course of 2,000 to train you in dissertation is a very important one. So please bear that in mind. Now, formative assessment is like the preparatory something to prepare you for the main assessment, which is summative assessment. So formative assessment, during seminars, they will be giving you some sort of guidance how to write a report, or any problem sets here and there, how to tackle the critical problem. So the formative assessment, what I explained is very important. It's a form of formative assessment. It prepares you for the main assessment. Summative assessment is the graded assessment. So you don't attend lectures, you don't attend seminars, you don't do independent study, you might struggle with the summative assessment. In other words, you're very kind of poor. I deal with some students that the reason why you have poor grades is because they don't attend. And I said in my class, I shouldn't give you guidance how to write this down. Because you never showed up, you missed that. And lectures usually are not recorded. And even if they are not recorded, you don't really watch any recorded lecture. So take that very seriously. So summative assessment is more of course. There will be students of the exam, so it's more of course. So get ready that you'll be writing a lot of coursework. And for those who are doing masters, the minimum score is 50%. So if you score below 50, you'll be asked to write it again, and you fill it again. Then if they consider that you fail some other modules, then they can ask the student to withdraw. So it's a total of 50%. For undergraduate is 40%. So you stop below 40%, that's failed. You have to sit the module. But for masters, it's below 50. And it's usually challenging. Students, they are failed the module and to achieve 50 again, sometimes it can be very difficult. So bear that in mind. Can we move on to the next? So as I said, so coursework. So now, from experience, like a lecturer will give a coursework brief, like a brief. I've come to realize that some students don't even read the brief. Just probably go to the classroom and then start writing the coursework. And then they write something completely different from what the lecturer is expecting. So you'll be given coursework brief. The brief that the lecturer will tell you what he or she expects, from you. So you need to read the brief and content of it. Even as you're writing the essay, go back and read the brief. Am I answering a question in this brief? Am I tackling the issues, in this brief? So down the coursework brief or assessment brief, Don't ignore it, read it over and over again. There are marking criteria as well. So if you want to score 80, the lecturer will tell you this is what I would expect you in a course. You want to score 60, then the level of writing will be. You want to score below 50, they will show you that. So have high expectations, target the highest and see that we can score to at that level. I think it's possible. So then one of the things, what I will also say here about coursework is that if you are not sure about the coursework, approach your lecturer. Tell the lecturer what you expect, right? A lot of students don't do that. So approach your lecturer and say, okay, I don't understand this. You probably explain what you're expecting. The lecturer will do that. So please, then deadline. Some people have failed their modules, not because they didn't write a good coursework, but because they did not submit on time. 1 minute, lateness could cost you a lot. Because some lecturers are not tolerant. But some lecturers will take it up and say, so then they sell their market. You have the outright freedom. So what I advise my student is, and I'm advising as well, if you are given a coursework to start, let's say today, and you're supposed to submit in December, start looking at it today and see how you can, even every day, see how you can have content and begin to build it up. Finish your coursework 2 weeks before the deadline. And just leave it for a few days. Then I'll go back to it. You'll see that there are people here and then you need to connect. So please, what is important, you need to ensure that every coursework is submitted before the deadline. Because here they could be very strict. They could be very strict with deadline. So please, take that into account. So marks are awarded for content and presentation. So it's not just need your content, you need very robust content in terms of whether you answer the brief and all that. But also presentation, the structure of your essay and all that. The presentation is very, very important. And you might be asked to present your work, you might be asked to present in the form of posters or general presentation or workshops, demonstration, and all that. So these are some of the assessments you probably will be exposed to. This is to prepare you for professional jobs. They are very important. So this is what some of things will do in your professional work as well. Next slide. So attend lectures I've said, seminars regularly, take notes. My wife, was telling me they don't take notes in the university. They don't just be looking at the lecturer, the lecturer is displaying the slides. Please have a good book, take notes. If others are not taking notes, leave them, you take notes. I'm telling you, you'll be surprised what you'll be the content of the book. It will be helpful for you in your exam. So please take notes in lectures and seminars. How many of us go VLE? For those who are students, virtually we use Blackboard, yeah? That's what it's like, we use Blackboard. So please visit VLE, your Blackboard every day. Lecturers, that is where they communicate with students via VLE. Lecture, notes, seminar, vocabulary day, everything is in your VLE. So visit your VLE every day. Because sometimes your lecturer will put things on VLE and they might not communicate with the student and they are things of importance. So, but when basically you would have seen, even if the lecturer is to communicate that with you. So make maximum use of VLE. Create a personal study timetable and study very, very well. Please, it's very, very important. Participate effectively in study. So if you have study group, I'm not used to study when I was in the beginning of my class. That's the way I told you. I realized that we don't need to just talk, and chat and my time. Right? So you, if you're studying group, they are very serious and but it is not helpful. Maybe it's more of chatting, nothing productive. Then you might need to call it this time, and it's very important in this context. So Visit the school library regularly to access relevant textbooks and other learning sources. So most universities have e-library now. So journals, you can get journals from Google Scholar, some other sources. Go to your university library, you highly have access to e-library, and if you need physical textbook, as well. Make clear about coursework. Not if you are not clear about coursework, so task, as I said, have a meeting with your lecturer. They are applicable. Everything. In fact, every lecturer has what we call academic surgery. The kind of academic surgery every 2 hours. And I expect, from kids that we can expect that these 2 hours come to me whatever the study don't compose very long. It's all common. So you are aware of this now. If there is something you are struggling with, go to your lecturer. Now, this is he or she will like to help. Next slide, please. Then just to be aware of the grading system here as well, it's similar to what we're used to back in Africa. So bachelor's degree over 70 is the first, as between 60 and 70 is second class, to 50 to 60 is 2-2, below 40 to 50 is top class, but below 40 is outside fail. Okay. The next one, which might be of interest to us, the postgraduate. Next slide. So the next slide. Now, dissertation, you have 180 credits. That's the standard. So you might take, let's say, 6 modules, 120 credits. For dissertation is 60 credits. Dissertation. And dissertation when you change down to $16,000. People fail dissertation in this country, particularly international schools. So it's very, very important. Yeah. If you, I don't know, but if you are targeting to have a distinction, then you need distinction in dissertation. That's what you need a distinction in dissertation. Or if you are not able to get a distinction over 70, you need to be very close, maybe 68. But if you are getting close, maybe 68, then all other modules you need a distinction. Or else you need get a distinction. What helped me to get a distinction in my master's is to got a distinction in my dissertation. It's possible. The same was scoring 80 dissertation. So it's very possible. So which one you need, engaging your supervisor, you have a very good supervisor, guide you to succeed very well. So this is a grading. So it's above 70 is distinction, between 60 and 70 is merit, 50, between 50 and 60 is pass, less than 50 is fail. You know, I've been here, but it goes really well 8 years now, and I've seen people to study, and because of the holding time of studying, first semester, so the thing and the whole of this not because big the one the full time work, the whole working 40 hours, the whole time of study about that. Now the back, then so what I do is you can see. So please, don't trade the form or emotion. Which one is full? Which is short-term gain. Long-term gain because you want short-term for the fact of money. So please be mindful of this. Make target distinction. It's possible. And what happening with I go agree with distinction of 2-1 first degree. So never can tell where targeting the best, where you take how far you take in life. Now let's move on, please. So please, can we go back to that other slide, the previous one? This is very important. Can we go back? Where is it familiarize? Familiarize yourself with the university academic regulation policies and procedures. Every university has academic handbook. Please, you need to read it. It contains every information about grading, about assessment, about appeal, the appeal, the appeal, appeal, dissertation. So get yourself familiarize with the university. And every university has okay, next is to manage your time effectively. Like mentioned, this devotion to God is important. It helps. Somebody was following up and said, we all the same like Christian, we pray for church several times, but I'm reading, we are reading. I don't think we're going to. We got the time to really went for an exam. I said, it was so forceful and I said, to have an exam. And the day of the exam. Now, we're going to everything. Everybody opens the plan, can you call the pastor? Put God first. There's some people that have come to study, God. Please don't make God your priority. There is God that can really take you far in this nation. So be determined and maintain a healthy life study work balance. This is also very important. It's good to read, but you need to maintain a good balance as well. It's good to work, but if your work is affecting your health, your mental health, then you need to probably continue or take some moment of rest. One can read and overread. If you read too much, it can affect you mentally as well. So maintain a balance, appropriate balance. Be disciplined, prioritize friendship, and socialize responsibly. Very good, very important. These are the distractions that we are seeing affecting a lot of students in the UK. I recall a friend who told previous church member what made him fail was okay, I didn't put it there. TV. Something like a computer game, TV. The student came, had a room, and he bought LED TV, big TV, and was watching African Magic. African Magic from morning to night. And he failed about 500, and the school said, if you don't pass this time, and come help you. And I went to him, and he was reading on the bed, laying down the bed, turn on the TV, and he was reading. I said, you can't pass. I know you can't pass, it's not possible. You can't pass. You are reading, lying on the bed, and you are watching camera, you can't pass. And here you didn't listen to the but thank God that then you blessed me. But you are not passing. You have room for an but he learns his lesson. Money wasted, 2 years for the graduate students. Money spent, wasted. So be careful of social media sites and all this. They are distraction. Dodgy sites, geography and all that. Video game movies. Just be careful because you have 24-hour access to internet. And these things, they are enemies. You can't control yourself. Please. So be mindful of all these things. Be mindful of going to clubs and pubs and all that. Let's find the invite for tournament. Don't go. Please don't go. I've been there. I'll go to the club and I will be friends to me. And we'll go rescue me. Next slide, please. So academic writing. So I will focus more on what is expected for you in academic writing. See, as master student, they are expecting a high level of critical writing from you. Just move on to the very right. So no, go back. They are expecting that you're writing 3,000 to 4,000 essay, and of course your dissertation to be analytical, persuasive, and critical. That is the level we are expecting. Describing and using words like this, defining terms. That mark dissertation, MSc dissertation, and I said, your research places are not clear. Everything is just definition. You want any research. Do you get so? These are the things that we're looking at: your analytical reasoning and writing, your critical reasoning and writing, your persuasive, how you can make persuasive arguments, which might require you sorting information, of different sources. So these are the things that will be required. So take note of this. That's at your level. For those who are doing top up Those who are doing masters, of course, PhD, this is the level they will be expecting. Of course, you will descriptive only 5% of the content. So, like 5% must focus on those things. Very, very important. Okay, let's move on to the next slide because of time. So writing an academic way, analytical, accuracy, critical, evaluate and weigh up ideas, consider available evidence, which will be from various sources. So discussing journal articles, reading them, displaying the information, writing it in your own words, and all that. Move on to the next. We use language in a precise and subject-specific way. As a lecturer, I mark also of course. So sometimes you just mark. In fact, once you start reading, you just get tired. He said it's not hard enough. But you still have to really get it. So that's why I said you need to spend time to study, to read, to develop a good culture. Whenever I see in my life, you need to write it properly. So that the lecturer is marking it, it's instructive to go out. It makes sense. It doesn't make sense, it doesn't even have mark. That's the truth. Sometimes I read the presentation, I get flawed, I just mark. I'm tired. So cite a wide range of authors, sources, and all that, because the more you read, the more you're able to source arguments, and now we help shape the way you write. Move on. So they'll be expecting how much you know theories, the theoretical framework, and filling your study. How you can shape that theory and apply it to what you're writing. The use of models, how you present arguments, how you present counter arguments, and many other things. So these are just few points when you are doing academic writing that you need to bear in mind. Next slide, please. Let's move on. There are some points for those who will be doing dissertation with children research topic. You need to, in fact, now I would say start thinking about the topic. So if we're going to start a dissertation, let's say in June, you need to start thinking about the topic you choose. So make sure that the topic you choose is topic you're familiar with. Okay. So does the topic contain easy and clear links? Let's move on. So theory, so you need to understand the theory before you start existing theories. So research questions. I think a lot of students they battle with research objectives. How to set up clear objectives, and that is very important. If your objectives are not clear, you're not going to complain with research. So these are the things you need to bear in mind. Are you going to provide fresh insight into the topic? Are you interested in the topic? If you are not interested in the topic, choose another topic that will be of interest. Do you have the necessary research skills? I've changed some student topics. Hey, you can't do this. Have the capacity. How does anyone really do this one? This one is simple. Because I knew that I wanted to so you need to look at your level of research skills, and that will also guide you to choose. Can you complete your project in which of time? Sometimes you cannot be paid 6 months. So you must choose a topic that you are able to give you a large opportunity to complete within the allotted time. You'll be able to gain access to data. You have to complete an ethics application. For those who are on the side, if you're doing you complete ethics. Very important. If you are collecting quantitative data, you have to complete ethics application. With the investor standard we met, does the research topic match your career goals? If you develop a research proposal and write a dissertation on that topic, that leads to your career goal, I'll tell you to be very useful. You can always put it in the CV. And it's one of the things is that people can tell that I did this, I did that, when I was doing my personal dissertation and all that. And you can easily link it up. So the job probably wants to so link it to your career goal. I'm telling you, it's very interesting. You can always use it as an example during the interview. Next slide, let's move on quickly. So you'll be for those who do dissertation, It can be qualitative or quantitative research or a mix of both. And these are some of the things you have to think about philosophy of the research, qualitative or quantitative, you have to think about your involvement. You are doing qualitative research that require maybe questionnaire or interview and all that. For more of your time, so you need to find someone to interview and interview. So qualitative will be more intense than I am more of a qualitative person. Counselling. So, but you need to be mindful of all this, and that will define the sort of the start topic to pick. So what is your goal? What are you trying to achieve? Is it to do a theory? Is it to make prediction or test hypothesis and so on? How do you collect data? These are the things you'll be thinking about. How do I collect data? The sample size, the method of analysis, how rigorous you want your research to be. So it depends on which side of research you're going to be focusing on, or if you're going to be combining. Usually, I advise my students, I said, you gotta either focus on qualitative or quantitative. Don't even come to do both. Just don't need the time. Don't need the time. Don't spend much for me. Okay, can we move on, please? So then the flow of research in terms of research process, let's move on there. Still, so you need to develop an effective research question or state objective. You need to survey the literature. This is where a lot of students, it's challenging for a lot of students. Reading the literature is always very cumbersome because you need to read other people's work, extract information, know the plot to the literature, see what you just have to do the literature. You don't read literature, you won't be able to set proper research objectives, you won't be able to question, hypothesis, and you test hypothesis. So you need to dig deep into the literature. Very important. So test analysis, interpret the results, and draw conclusion, communicate your findings. Some departments or some schools, it is mandatory dissertation you need to present. So I don't know, if you check your handbook, presentation is required, you might say it's 20%. Grading. So because sometimes dissertation now use ChatGPT to do dissertation. I'm encouraging even if you're going to use ChatGPT, you have to be very smart. If you're going to use ChatGPT and first use it strategically, I will know. Because it doesn't make sense to me. It might make sense to me. I will say you just use it. And unfortunately, you use it wrongly. So be mindful of this. Let's move on. All right, so your dissertation structure, this is what is expected, at least abstract. You need an abstract to summarize the content of the dissertation. You need an introduction, need the context, presentation, literature reviews, Buddha section, you need result section, section of discussion. I'm sorry, on data literature review on methodology. What method are you going to do? You need to state the method clearly. Data sets, and you are the qualitative things. You do questionnaire, you take secondary sources. You need to clearly spell that out. Then results, analysis and results. Then, of course, you discuss the result, you conclude. Then the references. So this is just like the first structure. Participation. The reason why I'm going to math, 60 credits is a lot. I know what I'm talking about. Move on to the next slide, please. So I adhere strictly to the university prescribed guidelines for formatting dissertation. So as much as content is highly important, formatting is also very important. Every school will have a guideline how they want to format your dissertation. Very important as well. Move on. So the margins and fonts and all, spacing, paragraph, alignment, other section, the page numbering, and all that. It should be in the handbook. Now I say pay attention. Some people will say this area font, some will say Times New Roman. So you need to be mindful of this. How do you organize the text, the headings, the subheadings, the footnote, the endnote, table? So these are just general commands. So you need to pay attention to, as much as you pay attention to the content, the structure of formatting is also very important. Now, plagiarism. How many of us have heard about plagiarism? How many? If you have not heard about it now, I'm telling you now. Plagiarism is a serious offense, academic offense in the UK. In Africa, remove the person's name and put your name. This is my work. Here, one cannot go scot-free. The system will detect. If Turnitin is, how many of us know about Turnitin? Yeah, it's a plagiarism checker. And that's what most schools use. Turnitin will detect similarity score. So you have pick other schools idea, if you fail to reference, then fail to paraphrase, will match, will pick it up as similarity, and you have the score, you have a problem. Some students have been asked to withdraw plagiarism. Complete text. Another person's work. So be mindful of that. It's an academic misconduct to copy sentences from textbooks, from articles, on the internet. Now AI. People are plagiarizing using AI, and it's a form of plagiarism. Now, so you have to be mindful of how you use AI. Because AI is an artificial source information, on the web, and then display that information, write it. But if you just copy it like that, going forward, so you have to be very mindful. So use plagiarism checker. So I think a lot of schools now, they give students opportunity to submit their coursework like 3 times before the final submission. So they allow you, give you this opportunity to check the level of plagiarism of the work. So you submit the first time and say, the plagiarism similarity score is 60%. Then these are allowed. Then you see how you can begin to paraphrase, maybe list out some references, you add those references, then we submit and it drops to 30%. That is still on the to see how you can, paraphrase again to make sure that it reduces to below 10%. You don't have to. So that is so very important. Plagiarism is something you must be aware of. If similarity score is above 20%, it might raise allegation of academic misconduct. You have to pay the penalty. And you cannot defend yourself. And I think the penalties could be very severe. Can we move on? Next slide, please. So these are some penalties. This university penalties vary from one another. They can give academic negligence if it's something that can be overlooked. Maybe you fail to reference properly or fail to paraphrase, and they are just few snippets of that in the 3,000 essay. That's academic negligence. But if it's something they cannot just tolerate, that this is too much, then they might give more severe penalty. You see, and some penalty could require expulsion, some could require revoking studentship, and some penalty could be them doing it again, they will now reduce the mark to 50%. That's score more than 50. Okay. So but this severest penalty is when they go the students. Studentship for plagiarism. And that could be a case of theft when you just take everything, change the and put your name. That's theft. That's a serious offense. Okay, let's move on. So beware of this. So avoiding plagiarism, you need to paraphrase. So when you're reading an article, you need to read it or understanding, paraphrasing, but you still need to reference that. Okay. So using dictionary and not. So better understand the thought of an author in terms to paraphrase the thought, put the meaning of the text into your own words. This improves your understanding of their work and forces you to pay close attention to their words. Now, when you're paraphrasing, you are not changing the original author's context or context. You don't use the word context. You must not change it, or else you will be misinterpreting somebody else's work. So what you could do is to write it differently, but still the same, convey the same meaning. That's what paraphrasing is all about. Can we move on? So steps in paraphrasing: read the original text carefully, substitute words. And thank God Google has made life easy. Just start the word synonyms. You use the synonym. Just put that synonym and change it like that. Or you could. I don't want to go into how to paraphrase, but it's something we'll learn at some point. The more you write, you will begin to know how to paraphrase. Substitute words and rearrange sentences. Maybe the last 5 or 6 words, you could bring them to the front, change some words. But they're not changing. So check the meaning of the paraphrase of your paraphrase against the original text. If it's the same context, then you paraphrase the word, but it's not your reference. So when you have to paraphrase, you still need to reference the original. If you fail to reference the original, quality will pick it up. That might cause an issue. So identify the source of paraphrasing and reference. Next slide. How many of us are very talk? Okay. I don't put this slide here. When you move to the home, I want to do master about that. Let's move on. Because some people might be interested in PhD, and I thought I should put this slide here. If you're interested in going after the masters, please begin to prepare for the PhD. So if you're going to take the masters in London, you start thinking about the start proposal on PhD. My only did the master and 2 years after starting PhD. But I've seen a few people that just made after masters, just like PhD. So they are looking for they're looking for PhD, even PhD. So if you are interested, I would say you can begin to consider it now. So what do you need? Decide what area you want to specialize in. So for masters, you have on the board. Now they will you I want to demonstrate. Just still need more. Especially students in the aspect of the broad field you are in, and trying to become an expert in that single area. To spend time reading relevant articles, develop your research knowledge, and identify research gaps. So you need a research proposal to put in for a PhD application. So of course you need the personal statement, you need the CV, and apply to many universities. When I applied for a PhD, I applied to so many universities in the UK, in Canada, in New Zealand, because my focus was to book a scholarship. I only applied to university and I will offer a scholarship. The time I got to scholarship in the UK. So I advise you to go do a PhD without scholarship. Look for scholarship, even if it is partial, but even if it is for partial scholarship, at least it is a good for the study. It's kind of consuming no time. But you say you are working and not educating, it will be a strong to get this in mind. And these are websites for scholarship. Okay. Yeah, I think there's something maybe so these are websites for scholarship if you want to progress on PhD. I think that should be the last slide. Okay, for those who want to become a lecturer, you need the master, you need the PhD, and I'm telling you now, they are recruiting lecturers from African institutions, from because there's the sort of United States gap in the UK. Any more PhD, different. I think kind of interest, so you can move on to master situation. So these are links where you can apply for PhD jobs, lecturing jobs. I think so. I will stop here. I'd like to do the final. Yeah. So academic careers in terms of job. So graduate research. So university employ graduate research assistants with masters. Okay. So you can try it with masters. You have masters, you can secure graduate research assistant job. So it's not really to lecture, but sometimes it's to do some research work here and there for professors. It could also require, teaching, level of teaching, but the seminar, teaching seminar, they will masters to teach seminar and time. So there are opportunities in the academic field as well, for those who thinking that academic career would be their pursuit. So any questions regarding the point? I think we can bring
the constitutive aspect.
Okay.
In Nigeria, you can literally, when you want to do a project, then
yeah.
Is there a second way?
Yeah, so very good question. So what you do is if you design a question, supervisor approves, cannot go around. You can do it, but that's not productive because you can easily do it online. Yeah. So do it like the chalk platform that we have. People design questions and they put on the chalk platform. Yeah, you can do it on Facebook, wherever. Then it will be challenging to print the question and start, nobody. They're more productive. So there's the school has free software that you can use easily to do a software questionnaire. I just post it on my video. Yeah, any other questions?
Yeah, I wanted to ask about something essential when it comes to I think that it's I want to compare it to Nigeria. My first degree was in the second degree was in economics. But coming back there, I really switched to education.
Yeah.
So now looking at the movie, let us start moving the information and the criteria is given so far. It's like taking it down now and doing more now, I want to do that. Doesn't matter if you decide to go all qualitative without any idea of fitting number there.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So the qualitative method, you could do systematic review. People do systematic review. People do systematic analysis. That doesn't even involve any questionnaire numbers at all. So yeah, you can do that easily. Yeah.
Then another question, sir, the aspect of as concerns and various what percentage level is accepted as good percentage for various?
Yeah. To be honest,
because sir, the reason I ask this question is because I know that getting the 0% is the process.
No, you can't get 0%. You need to be suspicious. Right. So, for me personally, I overlook below 20. But some lecturers, they don't. Some lecturers, they just pick up strings of words that are the same. So, was pointing, sort of, I like those strings of words, and it's still like 24 minutes. Oh, let's be challenging. But personally, I don't. As long as the person also referenced it, it shouldn't be a concern. So if I will put number, I'll say below about 20% and start raising concern. So get it as much as possible to be below, even below 10. Because of some lecturers, they are not just they are not telling. Yeah. Yes.
I want to ask our first
Yes.
do you need to put it in the codes even when you are still
No, you don't need to put it on foot. If you're not paraphrasing, you put it in the code. But the reason why I don't encourage that is because that means You will have to make both in your work, and that remove independence. That remove your own creativity and criticality, you know. So paraphrase it, reference it, don't feel important. Yes. Yes.
Without single tonic thing, you can do an overall similarity process. Yes, but there is no breaking down. Telling the particular work.
Yes.
That's no. So each work may not be 5%, 3%, so cumulatively it may end up at 20%.
Yes.
So the 40%, the lecturers have still tolerate 20%. You have the cumulative level of each reference work level.
I think it depends. We take it cumulative scenarios for the individual, you know, taking that we look to the similarity as well. Personally, when I do that, I'm still great. I try to look at the sum of the overall. Anyway. So in the sort of the overall is coming from one source, then definitely that is the concern. For example, if the cumulative is 20%, and then you want to know the sources where and you don't call source, and that means you use one source significantly, which is not good academic practice. Good academic practice is that we use wide range of sources. Yeah, yes, right. It makes sense. But we've only relied on one. I mean, focus on that one, that will go to academic side. So I would take that one. That's not going to be. Yes. So that thank this, I don't know, but I don't know whether you wrote your names down. We'll have it in the platform, and then we'll all be included in access. Yeah. Well, that okay. No, I don't know. Yeah.
You had something, or if you want to go on, don't worry, you can go on now. They will respect you. Okay.
I know. Hi everyone, so I'm Gavin and I'm going to be taking you through reference into today. So we're going to look at how to break down each reference, how we can get the most out of it, how to reference correctly. Now, before I begin now, and I was just on the phone with Lekan the other day about these automated referencing platforms online. I am aware of them. There are quite a few ones off the top of my head. There's like text.com or something. Now, I will mention them, but just so you know, personally, I'm not too familiar with them myself. Back in my day when I did my course, they were coming about. They were in the very early days. Again, people were aware of them, but generally we didn't use them. Then because you had to get a subscription for it, so we just ended up doing that ourselves for free. But basically, what I will go through today is how you would do it yourself, and then using that information, you can decide whether this would be something you would like to look into or not. Of course, the main types of referencing is, of course, Harvard referencing, the one I'm personally used to, and I'm sure it's going to be the case in about 99% of your cases. There is also APA referencing. They're not so familiar with it, but generally they do tend to follow similar guidelines, but the best course in any case is always use what your university's given you. So whichever way they tell you to write it, do it exactly as they say, because Sunderland's Harvard referencing may be slightly different from Northumbria's, from Newcastle's, from Edinburgh, from any of them down in London, so it does vary as well. So be mindful of that. Again, next slide. So basically, when we look at how to use the references and breaking it down, there's a few things to keep in mind. First of all, very subjective, the topics that you cover, what we read may be interpreted differently, so we could all read the same article, but each get different things from it, different bits of information, and we have different opinions on the article. Another thing is no source is 100% perfect. Some are better than others, but there's always a limitation. There's always a way to improve. One of the most important things is just because a source agrees with what you're trying to see or prove, it doesn't make it a good source, and vice versa. Just because it disagrees with you doesn't make it a bad source either. So basically, this is something that will continue long after you've graduated as well. Because in an ever-changing world, we're always going to be given these bits of information or these advertisements saying a certain product, service, or way of thinking is best. We want you to be able to leave your course, be able to, be the person your company goes to about advice on things. You don't want to be just a complacent yes man, as they say, just buying into all the adverts and that. Of course, their job is to sell and promote. Yours is to actually do your job itself, and will it be within the best interests or not, or is this just someone trying to take advantage? And paraphrasing, as Lekan's come across, is definitely preferred to direct quotes, but in a course, occasional direct quoting or paraphrasing is safer, better, and just proves to your lecturer that you understand the concept. In the 4 years I was writing assignments, I probably included a direct quote about 3 or 4 times. Can be done, but of course, like I said, the paraphrasing is just the gold standard. And discussion and analysis of the sources is, of course, the key to good written work. Anyone can just copy and paste what someone else says. Anyone can just write what someone else has said. It's slightly different wording, but showing a true understanding is what separates the first classes from the 2-1s and all of the others. So we're going to look at a few examples of types we use. More. I wanted to start with journals and e-journals. Now, these are what I'd say are the gold standard when it comes to different sources. So, the reason I consider them the gold standard is they're created by those who are very specialised in the chosen field. So, coming from a medical background, we would look at articles more so that were written by people in that specific field rather than anyone else. They've got first-hand experience, they've been educated and trained in that profession. They're going to have the information we need as compared to someone trying to sell a product, someone trying to, promote their services as such. And obviously it gives a new opportunity for new ideas and research to be put forward. And of course, the main focus of these tend to be just to inform and keep their colleagues updated rather than to promote anything. I think there's a bit more on that, yeah. And of course, one of the main, the only disadvantages, but of course, every single source out there, it can be limited by age. So of course, one made back in 1993 is probably not going to have too much relevance nowadays.
Referencing words that not older than 5 years.
Yeah, so there is quite. This is again something that many people debate about. My cut-off point was 10 years. However, again, there was a few incidences over my 4 years where I used ones that were actually over 10 years. Now, what I did in that case, though, was try to back it up with something more recent that agrees with it. The very idea of it is if someone else backs it up, if someone else confirms it, that adds to its legitimacy. To put it into perspective, one of our course subject was to look at the legislation now. The main bit of legislation for us is something called the Veterinary Surgeons Act. Now that was written back in 1966. Very long time ago, the only time England's ever probably ever won the World Cup. But it just shows how long ago it was. But in those cases, you know, that information is still relevant. We still go by those rules and regulations nowadays, but of course, backing it up with a more modern source is the key. Generally, I would say 10 years is my cut off, but again, it's more so if it's still relevant, it could be as old as anything. But if you can back it up with a more modern source, that will definitely help you out in the long run. And the sources used at the time is another limitation. Again, it may have been an article may have been very reliable at the time, but then a source they used could have used a disproved method that's been disproved since then. So that can limit it, and then that can limit it, and also conflicts of interest. Occasionally, there can still be promoting certain products and services. Yeah,
I think on my view, gives a credibility assessment also. So YDID.com. YDID.com. It gives the credibility assessment. It's credible already as well.
Yeah, so basically they would have to be and again with the software. I can't comment too much on their use, but by all means I wouldn't say don't use them, but that wouldn't also say don't not use them, simply because they can make it a lot easier, they can give you another source of information, but being able to do it first hand yourself in combination is only going to add to the legitimacy of your work. And I've put a couple of examples down there of how you might go about referencing those sources, so you can then have a look at them in your own time, but it's mainly just about fonts, what information you put. Do you put a comma there? Do you not put a comma in there? Next one is books. So of course these come in various forms, particularly with different editions over the years. It presents common thinking at the time of creation, and publishers and authorities may copyright them, adding to their legitimacy. So in our profession, we have what we call what's nicknamed the Vet Nurse Bible. It's essentially maybe 1,000 pages of pretty much everything there is to do with the profession. It doesn't contain absolutely everything, of course, it would just simply be impossible that, but it does at least gloss over certain areas. Now, again, to put that in perspective, when I started, the one I used was from 2011. I still got it, but my new students now are using one that was made just 2 years ago. So that's one thing about books as well. E-journals are very good because it takes a lot less time to update a journal than it does a book normally. And so, of course, for example, in over those 10 years it took to update that huge book that we all go by, there'll have been broken down countless articles that have been used to update it, that have been updated maybe 2 years after the previous edition, 5 years, or even within 6 months. So it's a lot easier and quicker to update an e-journal or a journal than it is for a book. So do keep that in mind as well. And of course, again, reliability declines all the time, and the new editions that are created can vary from every couple of years to it could be over a decade, as in that case I gave. So again, a few things to be wary of. Now, newspapers, I just thought I'd put this in just for a bit of variation. Obviously, it's a widely available and easy to access source of information. Many people use them. Now, I'll be honest, I don't think I've ever read a newspaper. But basically, one thing about them, if you ever come across using them in your written work, they do tend to be described as some of the most biased sources of information out there. And certain stories can be very easily manipulated to present a certain idea or to present their bias. And of course, there is an element of, they want the juiciest story to sell the most, to sell the most copies. And again, this plays into it. Others argue, of course, there's political motivation behind some of them, but again, this just shows how, as it says there, they're not written by experts in the field. They don't have the insider knowledge of these things. They don't have, the kind of, in some cases, passion and desire to present it truthfully and as it should be. And in this country, in the past and the present, many individuals will not talk to journalists simply because of these reasons. They can and have manipulated stories in order to present their certain agenda. So again, I just thought I'd put that in just to, be mindful that some sources overall are just more reliable than others. And next one. Now the next one, the most commonly used source of information I would say, websites, very easy to access, abundance of information. Now this is probably the source where the reliability just varies so greatly between each source. It can go from really reliable from a peer-reviewed medical websites here on certain medical procedures to just not reliable at all from a blog spot that someone posts, for fun. And there is, of course, bias, conflict of interest, and to be wary of what authors write and what. Now, the biggest thing to remember about this, anyone can write anything they want on the internet. For example, I don't know a single thing about cars, but there's nothing stopping me from going home today and putting some information on a random website saying, to make your petrol go further, just water it down 50-50 and it'll be completely fine. Of course, it's ridiculous when I say that, because obviously that's a very stupid thing to do, and obviously I have no experience in cars, but I could put that on the internet, and if someone comes across and reads that and goes, oh, that sounds like a great idea, well, they haven't really used their information that well, have they? Yeah, and of course, other examples, we've got lecture notes, video and conference notes that you can get from various continuous professional development meetings. And again, full sort of analysis of these sources is needed to get the best outcome from what information you get. Yeah.
What will also
About the Scholar, yes, Google Scholar is an excellent source. It's better than Google itself, I would say, for these. I would always say do Google Scholar first, then do Google if you need to. Yeah. So, for full analysis, the one that I feel is easiest to use is the who, what, where, when, why, how analysis. So basically, you've got your sources in front of you, whether it be a website, newspaper article, a journal, a book, whatever it may be. And this is what you're asking yourself when you're reading it through. So first of all, who's writing it? Who's involved in it? Do they have the right credentials? Do they have any bias? Are they actually in a position to be writing this and to be informing people correctly? What's being given is new information, a pioneering technique being discussed in this article. Was it created to inform? So was it a good journal article written by a professor in the field who just wants to update future generations? Or is it sold by someone at the Daily Mail who just wants as many copies sold as possible? And where was it conducted? This particularly applies to any scientific fields? Was it conducted in a controlled laboratory setting to ensure that everything was done correctly? Or was it just, from at someone's house randomly, just for a bit of fun? Things like that, of course, extreme example, but you get the idea.
Yeah.
And when it was, is it recent or is it more outdated? Was it at a time when they had sufficient source material? So, of course, as time goes on, we'll get more information on every field out there. But to have enough information at the time can be a very subjective assessment, as we've discussed. But basically, anything created more recently, you can at least take comfort in the fact that had more previous research behind it to create it than say someone writing an article 30, 40 years ago. And then again, why it sort of goes back into the what category, but was it to inform or to sell and promote? And how's it been conducted? Again, proper, effective, fair trials, or an actual really biased one or very poorly thought out one? These are all things to consider when you're reading them. So here's just a list of a few things that makes a source good or reliable, something you can trust, peer-reviewed, up-to-date thinking, so has other people in that profession read it, given the thumbs up to it, said I agree with this, is the sources used and proven themselves, because if you're not using the correct sources of information, that new source of information isn't going to be too reliable. And there's a created a fair and unbiased trial, no form of bias with it, and conducted by the right personnel. And the second to last bullet point is the biggest point to remember on this. Other sources confirm and find the same results. So if I went and did some research and then said, here's my findings, and if everyone else did it, if most other people found the same things, it would be the case of, oh yes, that's very reliable, we can trust this, or if everyone else had very different things, then, something's went wrong somewhere. And then, of course, was it well formatted to discuss current thinking with a very open and new ideas? And then also, if they acknowledged their limitations in it, if they identified them themselves, if they given suggestions for future research to improve it, again, it shows a desire to improve for the future. Now, and then on the other side, what makes a source bad? Well, essentially just everything that's contradictory to what we've just said. Now we've got a good example on the next slide, I believe. Has anyone heard of this case, the Lancet MMR autism fraud? Anyone? So again, just sticking to the medical field for a bit. Essentially, a doctor called Andrew Wakefield, ex-doctor now, and you'll see why, we submitted an article to the medical journal, the Lancet. Now, I wanted to include this because this is actually a very serious case of fraud, and also it just goes to show, even with those, you've got to be very careful, because this, for a while, made it past the Lancet, which is a reputable and highly trusted medical journal. And so basically, he was basically saying in his research, we found good reason to suspect that the measles, mumps, and rubella vaccine was linked to autism and GI disorders. Now, this 12 years after it was submitted, the Sunday Times conducted their own investigation and found it was complete bogus. They don't know how it even made it past the provisional stages. It ultimately determined that there was no link ever found, as opposed to what Wakefield had put forward, and that the benefits of giving the vaccine were actually outweighing the risk, the possible, in some cases, just complete fantasy of the risks that we put forward. Now, as I said before, it is a very subjective topic, this, but I think everyone in here will agree that this was a very badly put together article with the most obvious signs of bias you'll ever see in your life. We're just about to break it down as to why. So these are what was found after all of this. There was poor ethics involved, there was very poor judgment calls, there was very poor sources of information, and there was a lot of money being presented as backhanders in this case. So first of all, it said 8 out of 12 children will seem to develop the link that was judged with that he was trying to prove. But then, first of all, you've got an extremely small sample size there, 12 children out of the population of millions. 12 is hardly convincing, whatever it says. But then, of course, he was using the judgment of doctors, physicians, and parents to say, oh, did I have a link to autism? Now, for autism, you need a proper psychological assessment by a licensed individual. Not even doctors can really diagnose it. They'd need a full-on psychologist to do that. But then they were asking the parents, and parents, they could have had any job then. They could have been mechanics, they could have been library clerks, they could have worked in clerks. The chances of them having the chances of all the parents being psychologists was probably very slim. So again, he was using this 8 out of 12 very poorly assessed children to say, yeah, there's the link there. But then there was also, to show about corruption, there was a lawyer who was paying him to try and find a link for an upcoming court case. This lawyer needed some sort of evidence there was a link. He went to Wakefield and said, listen, if you do this, I'll pay you this money here. And of course, he gladly obliged, as it would later be determined. And here it is, multiple organisations not linked to Wakefield attempted to recreate the test, found completely different results. They don't know where we got the results from, essentially. And of course, he failed to declare his conflicts of interest as well. And apparently, this was a very dodgy thing he did here. It turned out, he failed to mention this, of course, he was actually bought the patents and the copyright for a new vaccine. So, of course, trying to discredit the current vaccine to promote the new one, it was going to prove very financially beneficial for him. And researchers involved in it can criticise the lack of exposure. Many of them didn't know what was going on to some extent. He brought the patent to the rival vaccine, and he was said to have manipulated fixed data to get the results he wanted. And of course, unnecessary and invasive tests which want to be conducted, which he is into the poor ethical conduct side, and that's something you need to be very aware of in your research as well. Now, ultimately, this had a lot of consequences. This wasn't just a poorly written article that was discredited and ridiculed, but it actually the scare led to a lot of parents not giving their children the vaccine due to the wounds that he'd instilled in their heads. It increased the incidence of mumps and measles, which can be fatal, and death rate and occurrence of these permanent and serious issues increased drastically. And one journal actually called it the most damaging medical hoax of the last 100 years. And essentially what we want to get across is incorrectly conducted studies and the use of sources can have severe consequences. So at this day, although this was made back in the late 90s, there's still repercussions to this day. You know, there's still adults who would grow over they have those permanent and serious disabilities because of this. And of course, when you see these anti-vaxxers, as they call themselves, who are against the vaccine, I could 100% guarantee they'll quote this article, even those who just looked at it. There's no way you could get that past anyone with, you know, who just even thought about it for a few seconds. And so, when writing references, as previously mentioned, Harvard's the very common technique, and in-text referencing of the author and the year is always required. And in the listed references, you need more information, including page number and publisher. And then again, there's a little guide on how to do Harvard referencing according to the University of Sunderland, or again, whichever university you go to, if you get the information directly from them, it can vary slightly. And basically, although the referencing list isn't something that's marked per se, if you do a really good bit of written work, I can guarantee you they'll look for some in your reference. You've got they use Harvard referencing in most universities. I think Lekan was saying the APA version is another technique. But Harvard, I would still, although it's the only one I'm used to, I would say it's the most commonly used one across the board. And so, of course, why is reference important? Looking back at statements and ideas with them, it shows evidence of wider reading that we haven't just said the first thing that comes to our mind. And the analysis makes for a more comprehensive and reliable and thought out piece of work. And so again, you know, just brownie points for your lecturer to give you. And then of course needed for after graduating, whichever industry you go to, I can guarantee you'll be met with representatives from companies trying to sell stuff. Your employers are going to rely on you with the first-hand experience to be able to say, oh yes, I think that will make it be beneficial for us, or I would say, or you would say, oh no, we won't need it, it's impractical, what have you. So I've just given you three stages here for how we use them in text. So basically they're varied from stage 1 to 3 just to divide them. So in stage 1, it says Smith 2010 confirmed this practice. It's all right. It's okay. It shows you backing up the statement you're making, but it's not really saying anything because we don't know anything about this Smith according to that. Is this Smith reliable? Does anyone agree with Smith, of course? So that's when we're moving to stage 2. So, of course, we've got Anderson and Jones both agreed with this statement. That's already twice as good as stage 1 because you've shown, again, 2 different authors in 2 different years have found the same result there. They agree with you on this. It increases the reliability of the statement. It certainly has more substance than whatever Smith says already. But then stage 3 now, if you want to be getting into the 70% plus for the first, this is the one you want to predominantly rely on. So we've got Robertson Webb stated this was correct. However, Mitchell stated on the contrary. What can you conclude from this? So of course, you've got confirmation there that these two guys agree, but then this information was later, a few years later, proved a bit different. So, you know, you may end up concluding, oh, well, Robertson Webb are a bit outdated, their methods are a bit flawed. Mitchell's far more up to date than them and uses the common practices. Or we could actually end up saying, however, Mitchell was shown to later be you know, biased or not use the sources we should, or you know, many of the right wings still agree with Webb. You know, there's a lot of things we could add, but certainly all stages may be used, but it's really stage 2 and 3 as mentioned on there that's going to get you the high marks. Yeah, that's everything.
So what comes to mind is that he said he came in during the COVID period, and there was a doctor in the US there that was proposing the use of prevailing to treat COVID there. Nigerian doctor. Based in US.
Nigerian based, a US based Nigerian doctor.
Okay, so when we're talking, that was what just came to my mind. If such doctor has a right, how we want to reference such and how valid it is, given the fact that the US whatever. So referencing such, how would that play out in the context of what?
Also, like if one of them used the flawed methods and was going around telling everyone about it. So basically, is mentioned just on the stages, they want to use layout like on stage 3. So basically, if this is where you want to work against your reference and get other sources, ideally more up-to-date sources, to disagree with them. Then if they're more up-to-date, you can start saying that they use more like better methods, their research is, you know, more up-to-date, things like that. Essentially, the thing is, as weird as it sounds, actually the best kind of references you can get are ones that disagree with one another rather than agree. The reason for it is you've got more to discuss, you've got more substance to add to your literature review, right, again, rather than just going, oh, this person says that, so that makes it all right. But yeah, there was quite a lot of, I think in the US at the time, there was comments about treating global patients with bleach. But it was very odd, but again, you know, something like that, it raise alarm bells initially, but then if you've got right about it, you've got the means to do it in there. Thank you.
I just want to quickly say that one thing I've noticed that to the student that is common is to apply dissertation, is to include a lot of reference. There's not cited the particular thing. You us one long list of references, just right. Those things, lecture will pick up on those things. They are not given to them. So please, you reference what was cited in the body of the work. That is the only thing you reference. That's just what you need.
You can use the bibliography for anything you may have read, but not use
Okay.
I would still recommend having like not a huge bibliography list for a few things there. Just it's not marked, but again, the lecturer will read it and say, "Oh, they've done quite a bit of research here."
What we tell us, don't cite whatever you have not. No reference what you have not cited in the work. You don't need it. I think, like me, I'm working. I use it my view, but I use my view reference. Yeah. So it enables you to select whatever standard you want. We have the 7 or whatever. So as I'm working, I just put the reference on the my view. So as the work is progressing. So once you put it on the my view, it gives you an in-text reference that you just click and drop on the wall. Okay. Yeah. Okay, so we stop here. So thank you so much for coming, for attending this orientation seminar. Please, one more time, let's thank our guest speaker. Please, what I would say, if you need further guidance, support regarding academic work, you just get it on the door. It's going for the more you contact more, share more of the concerns or the better. And if you think you've written a bit of work and you know someone who will please let me know. I have a time to preach. I can, invite to some of members, who are also into academics. So it's good to have them to continue. All right, so we'll put the slides on our platform. Any more questions before we pray? Let's pray. Heavenly Father, we are grateful. Thank you for this time. Thank you for the information we have had. Oh Lord, God Almighty, that this information will be to our transformation. I pray for all the students that they will succeed. We went through the university system in the UK, made it by the grace. For these ones, they will make it by the grace. I pray none of them will fail. None of them will fail. And I pray, Lord God, will favor them. The lecturer, oh God Almighty, that you have appointed to oversee their study, Lord, those lecturers will favor them. The system of UK will favor them. For the working class, trusting God for a miracle job, God will give you a miracle job. The Lord will set you well. Father, we are grateful. Thank you so much. There is nothing you can do for the Lord. We are really grateful. Thank you so very much. And the prayer.
I don't think we require analysis yet. It is your dissertation that you want to require for don't worry about language. Because I remember you're very beginning to like a text me. What I don't think you're likely to do just a strong law. That's what we're doing to your method of doing feedback, how to not do the job. Because you have other records you are not getting. So you have men, right? If you want to say, people that you are very important having so I want to give numbers in some situation, you see 40, 40 and 30 and 50. So for the initial, good references. Yeah, I think just put it there. Just put the no worries. Bye-bye, my friend. God bless you.